Hello, hello, everyone. Bree Sedano here, coming to you live to talk about 4 steps to paying off debt sustainably. And I'm pretty excited to do this talk because debt is one of the really big reasons that people hire me, and it's really kind of a pain point for a lot of people financially. So that's what we're going to get into today. So if this is your first time ever catching me live, please say hello so that way I know that you're here and I can just welcome you and say hi. If you're somebody who watches all the time, also please say hello. And as we get into this, please feel free to tag a friend or share my work. We're not running ads currently, so your shares, your comments, all boosted in the algorithm, and I appreciate it tremendously. All right, who is ready to talk about some of the 4 steps to paying off debt sustainably? All right. All right. So the first thing that I want to explain and I want to kind of get into before I get into the 4 steps is how the hamster wheel of debt works. Because I think this is super and super important. And the reason that I want to share this is because there is some conventional wisdom out there around debt and the evils of debt and how tragic debt is. One that I don't necessarily fully agree with. And two, that honestly is damaging and keeps people in the cycle of debt so much longer. Not because the strategies couldn't work on paper, but because psychologically and emotionally, they're super not congruent to the way that humans make decisions, and especially decisions in the long term. And so, all right, so let me just explain the hamster wheel of debt. All right, so if you have some debt and then you use all of your free cash flow to be paying off your debt to try to get out of debt faster, and then you need money, and then something happens and you need money, again, and you don't have money because you were using all of your money to pay off the debt. And so then you take, then you have to put something that you need back on the credit card. And then this kind of goes around. Further, further on the hamster wheel of debt, a lot of times when people put all of their free cash flow toward debt and their number one goal is to get out of debt and to be debt free, once they achieve that goal, that identity piece, that internal piece that's saying get out of debt doesn't have anything to do. And so then it gets back into debt to get back out of debt, which sounds real crazy, but I literally talk to hundreds and hundreds of people and it happens all the time. The same thing happens for weight loss. People whose goal it is to lose weight, they lose the weight, they put the weight back on, so that way they're back in congruence with their goal, their identity. So getting out of debt is, it's not that it's a bad goal, it just, if that's your main financial goal, a lot of times there's some self-sabotage. It's not even self-sabotage so much as just you have to really learn to shift that identity once you kind of get there. Give me a heart or a like if you're with me. Give me a heart or a like if this is making sense, if you're with me so far. And so generally when I see people on this hamster wheel of debt, it's the mindset. All right, there's a couple of things that keep people there. So one, it's the habit of needing money, right? That's one of the number one things. And the way to get out of that is to get into having money, which we're going to talk about when I get into the 4 steps. So if you use all of your free cash flow to pay off your debt, the habit of needing money stays. And that's the root cause of the issue. So that really exacerbates and continues that hamster wheel of debt. And then the other thing is the focus on debt. What we focus on grows. What we focus on grows. What we focus on grows. It's like an energetic truth. So when we have a lot of focus on our debt, generally the way that it kind of plays out in real life is then we're like, well, the interest rates are bothering me and I'm paying all this money in interest and da da da. And then, we feel that. That makes sense. And then what ends up happening is people generally start with a 0% balance transfer. So then they're like, all right, well, I'm going to move this debt here so that way I cannot pay any interest. Give me a yes or a heart or a like if you've done this. I've done this. There's nothing wrong with using a 0% balance transfer. It's effective. But when you take out new credit, but you leave the habit that causes the debt, what ends up happening is generally that we will double the size of our debt in a couple of years. And it doesn't happen fast. It really does happen over 2, 3 years. So then people will take out the 0% balance transfer, and then we can't get any of those. They'll take out a personal loan or a 401k loan, and then we can't take those out anymore. Then they'll take out a home equity loan. And then we're one step away really from like a bankruptcy, right? Because it's not so much the debt that's the problem, it's the relationship with the debt and the inability to get out of debt and stay out of debt sustainably. So that's really, really how people get stuck in in this hamster wheel of debt for decades. So I'm going to explain to you the way that when I'm working with clients, the steps that I work with them to do. Now, I want to explain that this seems like a slower plan. People be like, well, if I use all of my free cash flow to pay off my debt, I could be out of debt in a year. Maybe, maybe, maybe you can. It's not that those other methods don't work, it's just that they don't work for a lot of people because they're really psychologically incongruent, like I said. And then also, you can pay off your debt, but still have the habits of somebody who's in debt, still have the credit available like somebody who's in debt, and that still have like this burning desire to pay off a debt. And that's generally like a thing that keeps people kind of like once people are like debt free, how they get back into debt, right? So, anyways, all right, so let me go through my 4 steps. Let me go through my 4 steps. Again, please feel free to tag a friend if you know somebody who would benefit from this, or share the video. If you're in the Facebook group, please feel free to invite your friends to the Facebook group. We're growing it. It's a thing that we're growing and expanding upon. All right. All right. So the first step to getting out of debt sustainably is to stop habitually using your credit cards. Now you're going to leave your accounts open. You're not going to like close your accounts. You're not going to get rid of your accounts, but you do want to stop habitually using the credit cards. Why would you do this? Well, first is it breaks the habit of using the credit cards. Two, it does require a higher level of attention to your money and spending, and then it helps you to understand what your cash flow actually feels like. Debt can really change the way that our cash flow feels by getting rid of like cash and time barriers, right? So, like, let's just say I'm about to get paid and I'm like out of spending money, right? Well, if I have my credit card, it's like $26, no big deal. I could have it today and I'll just pay it off on Friday when I get paid, no big deal. But that sort of thing over long periods of time, it's a lot for a lot of people. It's really small stuff that kind of creeps up. So stopping using your credit card breaks the habit of habitually using your credit card, and then to be able to live, to be able to function, it does require higher attention to your money, and it helps you to get used to your cash flow, like as the truth, right? Like without spending more than what you have. Now, of course, like I said, you're gonna keep your credit cards open. And if you want to use your credit cards for like plane tickets or online purchases or things like that, you could do that. But you want to have the money to pay them off. But I'm talking about the habitual swiping. And honestly, for most people, I would suggest taking them out of your browser, unsaving them from your phone, because that's generally where people accidentally spend money. Now, along with this step, you want to start to look back in time and see, like, well, what are the root causes? What really causes me to get into debt? Is it a poor savings habit? Am I borrowing money for really boring shit, like my dishwasher broke or I needed snow tires? Like, is the stuff that I'm really putting on my credit card things I probably should have had money saved for? Or am I spending on like big purchases, like maybe a vacation? I get myself so stressed out that then I'm just like willy nilly, not like willy nilly, but like kind of like the fuck it. So you're like, all right, I'll figure it out. Like if I don't get out of here, I'm gonna lose my mind, and that's no good. Or are you using your credit like did your credit card grow very slowly over long periods of time, and like you're like, I don't really know what I got? Or is it some combination? Or did you use your credit cards to pay off medical debt? Like these are things that you want to like really kind of look at what caused all of this, so that way you know where to direct your efforts for changing the habits or changing the identity, that really is at the root of how you're, negative, how you got a lot of negative cash flow there, right? All right. The second thing that you want to do is start saving money. Um, and the reason that I say this, and the reason that I suggest this before really was starting to put a lot of extra attention and cash flow towards your debt, is because having money is the thing that keeps you out of debt. And so if you don't learn how to have money, you will go right back into debt because you will need money. Like that's the way that it goes. Not all of our expenses come in nice, neat little you know, monthly bills. Sometimes we need to expend a lot of money all at once. Sometimes we got a vet bill or home repair or a car repair or things like that. And so if we never get used to having money, we will always be in credit card debt. And that habit takes a while. It takes a while to build your savings up. It takes a while to get used to having, it takes a while to get used to having money in the bank. But if you want to pay off your debt and have it paid off sustainably, these things take a minute because you have to change all of your neural pathways for your habits. And like, honestly, it kind of even goes all the way down to your identity, right? Like a lot of people have debt as part of their identity. It's like, I'm in student loan debt. I'm going to be in debt forever. Like when somebody says that, like that debt is on their identity and that needs to shift. And all of these things take a little bit of time. All right. So start saving money. So I like for people to have three different types of savings. So I call it planting, preparing, and pleasure. Planting is going to be my like investments, your retirement accounts, whatever. Preparing is the thing that's really, really most important for staying out of credit card debt. That's going to be like your family obligations. Like, like if you got, some people got to be able to travel, they got family in Florida or wherever, or they got weddings or summer camp expenses or whatever, things like that. Your foreseeable disasters, your irregular expenses, and any non monthly self care. So you're going to want to start getting ahead on those things and start putting money aside. Now, obviously, while you're in this process, you're going to want to still be paying at least the minimums on your credit cards. You're going to be paying the minimums, but honestly, while you're in step one, and you probably want to be in step one for 3 months, like adjusting to your cash flow. And then you're going to add on the challenge of step two, which is starting to really save, which means like in step one, you're going to be looking at your cash flow. You're going to be seeing the places that your money's getting used inefficiently or wastefully or on things that you actually don't really value. And step two, you're starting to pull that money to be able to save it, right? And so we have those three different savings types. So if your cash flow is tight, you do want to get started with the planting, even if it's just like a little percentage, because you could always increase it. The reason that you want to be saving for that sort of stuff is because the way that investments work, your interest compounds over time. So while it's uh, well, the common wisdom that's out there is like, well, why would you be paying 20% of interest when you could be only getting like 5 or 6%? And it's like, because the way that the time works is the way that I look at it. And both ways of looking at it are valid. But here's what I know is that when I was a financial advisor, people would come see me in their like early 50s. They're like, well, we're finally out of credit card debt. And I'm like, well, how much money you got saved for retirement? They're like, none. We've been paying off our credit card debt. And I'm like, all right, you're gonna eat cat food. In all seriousness, you don't have enough time to save. So the money that you're not saving now, you got to figure your money's going to double in your investment accounts and maybe every 10 years. So the money that you're going to be missing in retirement is the doubles. That's the way that I look at it. So I like for my clients to be investing even while they're paying off their credit card debt, even if they do have to pay a little bit more in interest, because they're going to be out of debt and then they're going to stay out of debt or use their debt very intentionally after that. And we want those good habits in place, right? Like if I tell you, like at the end of the day, the way that you're going to stay out of debt is to be financially strong and to have good financial habits. So that planting, preparing, pleasure, those are three different savings habits with three different goals in mind. So one is like retirement money, one is prepared, which is going to keep you out of credit card debt, and then pleasure is like upgrades, vacations, travel, the fun stuff that's there for like whatever you're working toward, the things that you want. But also, again, those things, all three of those, like if you're never saving for anything pleasurable, you're going to fall off of the wagon. You're not going to be able to be good financially forever because there's no point. You sucked all the fun out of it for yourself. Let me know if this is making sense. Give me a heart if you're with me, if this is making sense to you. All right. So again, the first habit is to stop using your credit cards. The second habit is to get in the habit of saving the money, because then you will have the money when you need it. And this means that the progress that you make in your credit cards, you can keep. You get to keep it. And so start saving money, and you want to probably have like, a good few $1,000s in your savings account before you're really going to want to start focusing on finding money to pay off your credit cards. All right, you want to have and you want to be able to sustain these habits. All right, so Step 3, you can do is basically the same time as step 2. Step 2, you're gonna set it up. You're gonna set up your ACHs, you're gonna set up your direct deposits. And so the habit of saving money happens very, very quickly if you use automation. But then it takes time to work. So on step 3, you want to start shifting your focus from paying off your debt into like what it is that you want. And the reason for that is again, because what we focus on grows. So when people are super focused on paying off their credit card debt, they generally just grow the size of their credit card debt. Seems weird, but I promise you it happens because I talk to people all day long who've done that, right? So you want to start to shift your focus. You want to start to shift toward the savings that you're going to have. You want to start shifting toward the vacations you're going to go on. You want to start shifting your focus toward the home repairs you're going to make or whatever it is. On an identity level, you want to really become the person who's good at having money. You want to start to really look at like what is, like who do I want to be in my relationship with money? And that's like these I am type statements like, who do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? And then also, and when it comes to shifting your focus, you want to start to look at what is a healthy relationship for with debt for me, right? Like some people want to be debt free, and that's beautiful. Some people are okay to use credit cards intentionally for points or whatever else, also fine. Some people want to use debt to buy houses, probably not credit card debt, but want to do use debt to buy investments, also fine. Some people are okay with having a little bit of credit card debt as long as it's not really like infringing upon their life. Like you get to decide what your healthy relationship with debt is. It doesn't have to be debt free. Just doesn't. Um all right. And then that's the place too where you want to I actually tell people to really work on getting grateful for their debt. And the reason for that is because when we have a lot of negative feelings towards our debt, it really drains us. It really adds a lot of stress. It really adds a lot of heartache. It really adds a lot of feelings of guilt and shame to our finances. And all of that doesn't help, right? Like if you feel ashamed of your debt and you still have it, like that's not helping you get rid of it. It's not helping you in your day to day. It's adding stress, and heartache to your life. The same thing for guilt, the same thing for embarrassment, the same thing for regret. A lot of times these are the feelings that people are having toward their debt. And so I generally suggest that you really like have a big talk with yourself. If you need to look at some forgiveness for yourself or your spouse or your kids or whatever around the debt to be able to energetically let the debt kind of go. Like obviously we're still going to pay it. It's still going to be there, but at least then it's not costing you high amounts of energy. Let me know in the comments if that is something that feels heavy for you, if it's something that stresses you out, if it's something that adds, a layer of shame or embarrassment or guilt or heartache or regret, to your life. Like, let me know if this is a thing, if I'm making sense, if you're with me. So, those are some of the places that you want to shift your focus. And so, this is really about shifting your mindset. So, we want to be looking at that identity. We want to be looking at, our habits. We want to be looking at those things. And then we do want to really get grateful for the debt. And so, I'll tell you a little story. So, there was a point in time when my husband quit his job. He wasn't loving it. He was kind of getting to the point where he was really, really unhappy, right? And he was super, super unhappy. And that was impacting our marriage and our home life. And so I was like, all right, babe, well, quit your job. And were we all the way financially ready for that? No. But did it really make a big difference to our lives? And was it the right choice? Absolutely. Right. So I made a choice that in our lives and for the well-being of our kids and our marriage and all the things, did it make the most sense financially? No, it didn't. Um, and so while we were sorting that out, I used my credit cards for things I normally don't use my credit cards for. I use my credit cards to buy gas and groceries and feed my kids. And at the end of about a year, when he was, back on track with the employment or whatever, it took a minute. It took a minute for him to, you know, find a direction that he loved, right? So we weren't in a super big rush. And so at the end of the year, I found that I had, $18,000, $20,000 in credit card debt. And I'm like, for a minute, I was butthurt about it, but, like, really, at the end of the day, what was my other option? Let my kids go hungry, not have gas in my car? Like, at the end of the day, I'm, like, so thankful that Capital One was able to help support my family through this transition, and that's the truth. Like, when I paid that Capital One bill off, Like, I'm like, "Hey, Capital One, thanks for picking up the groceries that time we didn't have money for groceries. Hey, Capital One, thanks for doing this. Hey, Capital One, thanks for having my back when I needed you." And I paid that credit card off happily and joyfully, and, like, and it's and I still have a great relationship with Capital One. If I wanted to use my Capital One card today to buy anything, they're still my go-to. And so it's about having that shifting that relationship. And I think when we get to the place of like really being like, holy shit, man, I could have gone without on this, or wow, I wouldn't have learned that lesson, or I wouldn't have had this experience, or I wouldn't have these beautiful shoes without that credit card. Thanks. Like, that's a big thing. And I think another thing that's super, super helpful on the credit card is remembering that you got something for the interest. Like, the one of the biggest and most painful ideas that's out there in money is that you didn't get anything for the interest. You sure as shit did. You got time with the thing. Like, let's just say I buy a car on a car loan. This isn't about credit cards, but this is easier to understand, right? So let's just say I buy a $10,000 car with a 5% note, just for easy mental math that I could do on a live stream, right? So I'm going to pay $500 a year, right? So I'm going to pay $2,500 to have the car now, rather than in the 4 years it would have taken me to save, right? So that's the benefit. The thing that I got on my car loan interest is getting to have my car years before I had the money for it, right? If I had to save all the money, I would have paid less, but I would have gone a couple of years without a car. And to me, the interest of and then getting a car now helped me to be able to navigate, help me to like be able to go to work and do all the things. And so that's what you get. And so if you buy a vacation that you can't afford, or that it's not like that you can't afford, but if you buy a vacation on interest, on credit, when you're going to pay interest, you got the vacation a year before you could afford it, if it takes you a year to pay it off. And so there are some things, the mental trick about that is that things that have already happened, mentally they lose their value because they've already happened. So before you buy the vacation, you put a high value on the vacation, and after you go on the vacation, you've already had that experience, so the value that you place on it is less. And so then the interest doesn't feel quite as good, but like, you got something for the interest. You got the time with the item, you got the time with whatever else. And so that's another place where people really slip into like this low vibe victim state. And I'm like, but you got something for that interest. Like, you did. You might not value it now, and that's fine. You get to make different choices as you go. Um, but that's the truth. You did get something. And so like, I think also recognizing that, I think helps to like ease some of the butt hurt feeling about the credit card. Um, debt. So anyways, I like for clients to kind of shift that focus into like the gratitude and appreciation, and like really excitement and eagerness to pay it off. Another thing that like really causes a lot of internal conflict, and it ends up being a money block, is like wanting to be out of debt but then paying off their debt resentfully. It's like, I want to be out of debt but I don't want to write the check. I want to be out of debt but I don't actually want to pay it. And so that internal conflict what causes like sloppy manifestations, sloppy results. All right, so that's number 3. And then number 4 is where you start choosing a strategy and start really working on like focusing, starting to redirect some cash flow to paying off the debt. But really, like, the thing is that you have to be saving money, being able to save money while you're doing that, because if you stop saving money, you're slipping back into the debt patterns. So what's interesting is, sometimes I'll have clients that maybe for a year are just paying their minimums as they're learning their cash flow, as they're getting their money stuff together, as they're shifting their spending, as they're redirecting their mindset, as they're focusing on making more money and getting a raise. They may just be paying the minimums for a little while and paying, that interest. But then once they can start doing it, then the debt gets smaller while their savings gets bigger, and then they have something to be focused on, right? So like, if I'm focused this way toward the credit card debt and toward my debt is going to be growing. But if I kind of just pay the minimums, some people can move much faster. It just depends on your cash flow. But what I'm saying is, this process to pay it off sustainably requires more than just paying off your credit card debt. It requires like really looking at what caused the problems, really changing your habits, starting to have like looking at the habits that were the problem, adjusting those, and then adding in new good habits, adding new identities that are more in aligned for what you want to be doing, getting clear on your goals, and then getting some momentum going in the direction that you want to be going in, and then we send the money back, right, into the past. But when we're mentally in the future trying to think about what we want while in the past trying to think about what we have to pay off, our energy gets real spread out and we become less and less effective. So that's like a little bit more metaphysical, but that's kind of what happens. It's like our energy gets stretched out too thin and then we're not really potent. We're not really in any of the things. So again, we're always going to be paying our bills, but really if they need to be paying on the minimums for a little while we do this other work, that's how we're sustainably staying out of debt. Because if we rush and we don't change the habits and we don't change the identity and we don't change the mindset and we don't change the emotions, even if somebody wrote the check to you today to be out of credit card debt, you'll be back in credit card debt in like 20 minutes. And that shit happens. Believe me, that happens. I've talked to a lot of people who will maybe have like where one spouse will have credit card debt. They'll tell the other spouse will take the money out of savings, pay it off, but never address the habits, never address the mindset, never address any of the things. And then in a couple of years, it will be back. But also, all of that shame, all of that embarrassment, all of those bad feelings will be compounded. They'll be bigger because now we've had the same problem twice. And then we're like, well, what's wrong with me? And it's like, well, it's not that anything's wrong with you. It's just that you approached a problem that had many layers with like if that was poison ivy, you cut that thing at the ground level. It's coming back. It's coming back. So when we want to really get out of debt and have that be sustainable, we got to go for those deeper levels, just like your mindset, your identity levels, your feelings, your habits, that kind of stuff. All right. So let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if you're getting something out of this talk. Great. Yeah. So somebody says, the fuckins. Yeah, we already talked about that. Lois says, yes. Melissa says, stress and grateful both. Yep. Yep. Laura gives me a super sweet compliment. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So yeah, give me a comment or a heart or like if you're with me so far. And so what I want to talk about now is that my Cash Confident program is open for enrollment. It's going to be open for another 10 days. We have it open and then the doors will close on April 9th. And I want to invite you to join the Cash Confident community membership, especially if you're somebody who's got credit card debt and who wants to work on all of these levels. So I'm going to take a minute and then just kind of talk about what goes on inside of the Cash Confident community, and then invite you to join. The link is already in the description of this, but I will type it in just in case. And it's cashconfident.com/membership. All right. So that will be popping up. All right. So Cash Confident is a membership, and the thing that I think is like the bee's knees and the coolest thing ever about the Cash Confident membership is that we really look at all of the layers to what's going on financially, and you have a space and a community to do the work on like your strategy, your habits, your mindset, your emotions, and then have like a community. And so the way that like the what you get inside of the community is we have content that goes out live. And so like right now we're starting a course called Find Your Bleed, and that's we're going to be going through people's transactions, doing spending audits, figuring out like where their money goes, where they bleed, where they're um like where they're spending their money inefficiently or wastefully or just buying things that are low joy, right? Then I don't actually know off the top of my head what we're doing next, but we go through it through like a cycle of live courses where I deliver some of the content live. You get time to ask me questions. All of the courses that I teach are also recorded. So if you wanted to like go in and binge them, you're welcome to. Or if you wanted to just kind of poke around and go in your own order, you're welcome to. Then every month we have 6 live calls, and these 6 live calls are tremendous in terms of value. Tremendous. Like, the level to which you are able to learn, like, really cool techniques, for your mind, for your emotions, for your money, compared to, like, the cost of the membership, the difference is wild, right? Like, you get so much more. So anyways, we do 2 money mentorship calls, every single month. I do one on a Saturday, and then we rotate the other days. Um, so inside of a monthly money mentorship call, people bring their tangles, right? So they'll bring, like, the problems that seem like they're just like problems that are not exactly going away. And we look at the belief structures, and we look at the mindset, and we look at, like, the layers of the problem, and then we problem solve it together. So those are done in small groups. So you get to benefit, like, from coming even if you don't necessarily have a question. And so those are the calls where we're doing a lot of the mindset work, a lot of the, like, the transformative work. Twice a month we're doing transaction review slash spending audits, and that's where we, like, you'll bring your categorized transactions to the call. I'll get to take a peek at them, and then I'll give you customized advice on, like, what to change, if there's something to change, what to change, and, like, where you're going to get the most bang for the buck in terms of effort. And I will tell you that these calls, generally the people who show up to 1 or 2 of these calls get enough advice to fully pay for their membership within, a couple of months. I have one client, we were saving $750 a month, $750 a month on food. I've had a client go through a spending audit, save $7,000, and that was in her business. That wasn't even her personal life. She did the same process for her business. So a lot of the times, the biggest, like, reason that people don't join the community, is they're like, it's, I don't have another $100. I mean, it's $100 or it's $99 a month. And I'm like, yeah, all right. I mean, it's not to say that that's not true, but if you believe that you're spending money on things that are wasteful, inefficient, or low joy, redirecting a portion of that, then you just end up with so much. Like, you're going to spend the money anyway, so you might as well spend it on something that's going to make your whole life and financial situation better. But anyways, that's up to you. So anyways, that's what we do in the spending audits, the transaction review calls. As we go through your spending, I give you suggestions, and then those suggestions are also customized. Like, we have a conversation about it. So that's really what makes them work. Right? Like, I'm not, like, looking at your transaction and being like, "Stop getting your nails done, dumb dumb." Like, that's not what's happening. We go through, I ask you questions about what you value, what you don't value, where your habits are, and then we can see what works. And then twice a month we do calls on accountability. So a lot of the clients that come to Cash Confident have some feelings about money. They maybe have some procrastination issues. They got some avoidance issues. And so we just hold the space. We hold the space where you can come to the calls. Generally, the calls are pretty quiet, but you can ask questions if you have questions on the material, on how to make something happen. We're there for you. But the sweet part is you get those calls into your calendar, and then you get to come, and, like, we hold the space for you to get that work done. And so sometimes having it in the calendar and having to show up to a meeting is, like, the thing that really helps get those things done. So inside of the Cash Confident community, really you get access, the courses themselves, the recorded courses. If you were to buy them all, they're like $1,300 worth of courses. Plus you get the twice a month money mentorship calls, and that's, like, for transforming your money mindset. That's really on, like, building more abundance. We do that, like, wealth energetics. I'm always teaching something cool, something snazzy, something that you're going to love, right? You get the transaction review calls to get that um you know customized advice, like, on your actual transactions, on your spending, and then we redirect that toward whatever it is that you want more. So we're seeing clients paying off their debt for the first time. We're seeing clients have money for the first time ever. We're seeing clients get out of debt, stay out of debt. I have one client, she saved $850 a month. It took a couple of months. It did take a couple months. She found, like, all of her like, low joy, wasteful, inefficient spending. She cut that out. She redirected that to a loan that was almost paid off. Then that took, a couple months, and then that was gone. And then she redirected that money toward one other thing. And then within, like, 6 months, she had $850 a month in free cash flow that she was able to pay off. She was able to pay to get her deck redone. She took her kids to Disney. And that didn't take long. It took like a year to be able to do those things. And that's the kind of results that we're seeing. We're seeing clients go on vacation with their kids. We're seeing clients travel on their own. We're seeing clients, get new granite kitchen countertops. And right now, if you join, we have three just like quick start bonuses. So one is on how to take control of online spending. So you'll get that. We have another bonus that is a quick start on should I get a better job or a better budget, and that is super super cool because a lot of times people flounder with that and spend a lot of time trying to solve the wrong problem. And then the third one is how do I stop stressing about money all the time? And I was just these bonuses are new. So I was just reviewing that one yesterday. It's finished, but I was just giving it the final review and it's so good. It is so, so good. And so anyways, the Cash Confident Community membership, you can click the link to join and really like if you come to one or two of those transaction review calls, almost everybody we can find literally enough money in stuff that you're not using or don't love that literally just pays for the whole year of membership. But we're seeing clients, we're doing a class coming up soon, like in the next season, called 30 Days to Get a Raise. And when we did that, we saw clients getting $10,000 raises, $12,000 raises. We have one client who got a 55% raise. We're seeing clients raise their prices in their business. And so a lot of the clients are really getting their money stuff together, but really also opening up to higher levels of abundance, really shifting their mindset, really feeling like they're worthy and deserving of it. And that's what we kind of do in the money mindset piece and then that emotional intelligence piece. So, anyways, inside of the Cash Confident community, you get like the financial strategy, you get the habits work, you get the mindset work, you get the emotional work, and you get a community that feels good to be in. Everybody's super sweet, super encouraging. You'll see the same ladies on the calls. They'll cheer you on, you'll cheer them on, you'll learn from them, they'll learn from you. The whole thing is super, super good. So, anyways, I hope that I get to see you. And on April 9th, the doors are going to be closing. So that way we could focus our attention for the members that we already have. And it will be a while before they open again. So if you're kind of on the fence, like now's the time, you get all these sweet bonuses, they expire. So you want to get in sooner rather than later. All right. That is my talk for today. You can ask me questions, shoot me a DM if you need anything extra from me. All right. I love you. Appreciate you. Bye.